Hello, I'm Elizabeth Johnson, and this is From the Source, a show highlighting what is new and going on in your neighborhood and in your village. As co-president of the Manhasset Chamber of Commerce, I'm excited to host this show, which provides insight into our local villages and its representatives. Today, I am thrilled to have as my special guest New York State Senator Anna Kaplan, who represents the 7th District. She was born in Iran and came to the United States at age 13 to escape the Islamic Revolution. She graduated from Stern College for Women at Yeshiva University and received a Juris Doctor degree from the Benjamin Cardozo School of Law. She lives in Great Neck with her husband Darren and has raised 2 children. Senator Kaplan began her career in local government in 2011 as councilwoman for the town of North Hempstead, representing the 4th District, which includes Great Neck, Manhasset, and a portion of Roslyn. During this year in Senate, she has already made a big impact. Here to speak about what is going on is Senator Anna Kaplan. Thank you, Anna, for joining us today. It's a privilege to have you on From the Source.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's my pleasure to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here, and I know that people want to know, what made you get involved in government?
Honestly, if you would have told me 10 years ago, this is where I would be in 2019, I would have told you, you just don't know which Anna Kaplan you're talking about. I was never groomed to run for office. I never entertained the idea of running for office. But I have to say, I'm really grateful for my life, for all the opportunities that I've had, all the opportunities that have been given to me in this great country. And it's really the promise of this nation that you could come here from anywhere, work really hard, set goals, and achieve your goals. And I got really involved with my children's public school education. I became part of the PTA, tried to do a lot of various things to help out. And then I was asked to run for Great Neck Library Board. And I really didn't want to do it because I think when you run for an office, it sort of puts you under this scrutiny that you have to be able to answer to everybody. And didn't think really that was something I felt comfortable with. But my husband pointed something out to me. And he said to me, you know, you talk about this country with such passion and all that it has offered you and how grateful you are. In this country, we give back when we're grateful.
Absolutely.
And that was really the reason I ran for the library board. I served for 4 years. And while I was on the library board, I was appointed to sit on the Zoning Board of Appeals for town of North Hempstead. And at the time, Councilwoman Kitty Poons was the councilwoman for the 4th District. She decided to retire, and they asked me to run for that seat. So in 2011, I ran for council seat for the 4th District in town of North Hempstead. And I served for 4 years. And I figured I'll serve another 4, make my mark, do some things that I'd like to do, get some accomplishments, and move on, pass the baton to someone else. But it hasn't really quite worked out that way. I was recruited for some other offices, and I have a habit of not saying no. But I have to say, last year, January, it was more my idea, wanting to run for New York State Senate. Talking to a lot of different people from a lot of different groups in the district, they felt there was a feeling that a lot of legislation was not really being passed and that the residents were not really being heard. So I put in my name into the hat and I ran for this seat. And I'm really privileged and humbled to say I represent the 7th District in New York State Senate. And I'm a voice, an advocate for 350,000 people in my district, but also really for 19 million people throughout the state of New York.
Well, we're very happy to have you representing us up in New York State, and I know you've made such a big impact already. So what is your primary objective, now that you're in office? I know you're representing the people well, because one of the things that we were looking for help was some relief with the taxes.
Yes. So I can tell you, my goal really for this year has been to deliver on all of my campaign promises. I ran because there were a lot of young adults from different high schools reaching out and saying, we want safer schools. We're scared of going to our school. And no child should go to school being frightened that they might not make it back home at the end of the day.
Right.
So sensible gun laws were really something that I advocated for and I pushed, and I really was one of my key promises in the campaign. And I'm so happy to say we have delivered on that. I had one bill, my first bill, was actually closing the loop of really putting the people who are domiciliary of New York and people who are resident through the same test in order to be able to purchase a gun. Because if you're a resident, you basically have to go through a different way than a domiciliary. Someone who has a house here, but they're not resident of state of New York.
Okay.
It was just a loophole that we needed to really close, and we did that. So in case someone is really not of the right frame of mind to purchase a gun, they should not be really given that opportunity. We passed the red flag law, which enables law enforcement, family members, school administrators to go ahead and make an appeal to the court and ask to take a gun away from someone who might be dangerous to themselves or to their community.
Oh, that's excellent.
It's really huge. And we banned bump stocks. We just banned the 3D gun ghosts, the plastic guns that you can make very easily.
Scary.
Very scary. And it brings us to the point that we're living in the 21st century, and we need to move with times, and we need to have legislation that protects the safety of our residents. I'm all for Second Amendment, but we need to make sure we are doing everything to ensure our residents feel safe going to school, a house of worship, a movie theater. And these are sensible gun laws that were really spoke to a lot of residents in this district. It didn't matter if they were Democrats or Republicans. They all wanted these sensible gun laws. Safely storing your guns. Putting legislation when you have a child under 16, you should be storing your gun very safely. Because you never know, kids get together, your children have play dates, they come across the gun, and they're just playing, and accidents happen.
Right.
So, as I said, really sensible gun laws were a very big key issue. Codifying Roe in New York State was a huge deal. especially in light of everything that's going on a federal level and what we see is happening throughout the country. I'm a big believer that a woman has the right to make her own decisions when it comes to her reproductive decisions. And it should be up to her, her physician, and her family. So I'm so happy that we did this, because we can't count on the federal government, and we need to make sure our laws are protecting our residents.
And so what is that particular legislation say in New York State? Because others are so restrictive, but here...
So with New York State, we basically codified Roe, and it gives the same protection. It was never codified in New York State.
Okay.
And every time this had come to the Senate floor, they had said, you know what, federal law is what it is, and that's what we're going based on. But as we're seeing lately, every state is challenging that and making their own regulations.
Right.
And we also, I think, went a little bit further. When there's a woman's health at issue, at risk, or when the fetus is not viable, then the woman with her physician can make that decision to see what they need to do.
Right.
In campaigning, I have to tell you, I met a lot of different people. One woman in particular is etched in my head. Her story was, she was a 36-year-old woman, happily married, had one child, was really looking forward to having another child, got pregnant with some difficulty, well into her second trimester, closer to her third. She went for her regular visit, checkup, and she was told by her physician that the fetus was not viable, and that she had to think about what she needed to do and make arrangements once the term is fully completed and she gave birth. She would probably have to bury the child.
Sad.
So just think about how devastating for a woman it is. All happy about having her second child, completing her family, as she put it. She had to think about what she wanted to do and what she needed to do. And I don't think it's right for the government to decide to force this woman to carry this fetus through the 9 months term. So what did she do? She went to another state. You know, these are difficult decisions, but I think every situation is different, and we need to let each individual, each woman, and her physician and her family decide what's best for them. So I'm very proud of our legislation. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about this. I hope people read more about it and understand what this exactly is doing. Senator Kruger, who's one of the senior members of our Senate conference, and I did an op-ed, and we got it published at various small local papers, and we're more than happy to really share that with anybody who wants to know why and what this legislation means exactly. You know, to be able to give that opportunity for a woman to decide for herself is really a key component for me.
Thank you for explaining that. I really appreciate it.
And also the other one of my bigger also promises was to make 2% tax cap permanent.
I was just going to ask about that.
I have to tell you, it has been 5 months of really big learning curve for me, a whirlwind. I'm not new anymore because I've passed my first budget. You could ask me whether it's perfect budget. Are you happy with it? I will tell you it's not a perfect budget, but I'm very happy and proud of it. We did a lot in this budget. And one of the main things that we did was to pass the 2% tax cap. Make that good forever. Because before the 2% tax cap, before making it permanent, we used to see taxes go up 6, 7, 8, 9% each year. And it makes it very hard to become residents of Nassau County, Long Island. And we need to hold all the electeds accountable and make sure that they are spending wisely. And we took ourselves to that task too. We started with a $2 billion deficit. And we have stayed within 2% tax spending. So I'm happy to say we do what we preach. If we're asking other municipalities, the town government or the village government or the school government to stay within that tax cap, we also have to stay within that tax cap. So I think that was a very big win for all of us here in Long Island, and to make that permanent is a great thing.
Absolutely, especially now with the new reassessment coming.
That's right.
So
That's
that
right.
will help.
Yes.
I know that children are very near and dear to your heart, and that and education. You were also able to obtain funding for our schools. Talk to me about that.
So I always say, for me, I really take it upon myself to advocate very strongly for children and for seniors.
Yes.
Because I truly believe people our age can really fend for themselves.
Right.
It's the children and the seniors who might not be able to advocate for themselves as strongly as we can. So as an elected, I've always tried to do that. And more funding for our schools is very beneficial. For the really residents, because any money that we bring in is less taxes that they will be charged. So we are sending a lot of our tax dollars, and we need to make sure that we get some of that back for the benefit of our residents. And this district, the crown jewels of this district are our public schools.
Absolutely.
From Elmont to Port Washington, from Manhasset to Westbury. You know, residents move to these areas because they want to give their children the best education possible. So from day one, whether I was on the third floor, which is the Senate and Assembly, or whether I was on the second floor, which is the Executive Chamber, my goal was like one thing: deliver more funding for our public schools. And I'm happy to say that the state got 3.6% increase in the funding, but my district, we got 8.6% increase.
That's awesome.
It is. And
how did you do that?
Would I have liked more? Absolutely. And I'm still looking into different ways where I could bring in money for capital projects.
Yes.
For the schools, so they can do what they need to do. I have to tell you, my first, second, and third request was more funding for my public schools.
Yes, the infrastructure definitely needs support.
Right.
You know, we've been here for a number of years, and what was nice as a small, for the small town, small village, whatever, has grown exponentially
Yes.
with the development of residential properties
Yes.
and everything in our school system. I mean, thankfully has responded, but you know, the aid, especially for infrastructure and new school buildings
That's
and
right.
stuff,
That's right.
is
And that's what I will keep on
Incredible.
advocating for and try to bring more funding.
Oh, we thank you for that. That's awesome. The opioid epidemic, I know that, you know, we always think that it's not really in our backyard, but I know that you were part of the many groups, including Manhasset CASA, which
Yes.
I was part of as well, and you did quite a bit of work on that and continue to do so. So talk to me about that.
So I think Long Island is in crisis right now.
Absolutely.
There isn't a single person who has not been affected, either by a member of the family, a friend, a neighbor. We all know a story. We know a person that we could put behind this. It is a big issue for all of us, and we need to do a lot more. But I'm really happy to say this year, this budget, this conference delivered the highest budget in terms of dealing with opioid crisis.
That's wonderful.
Record numbers. And I'm really happy to say that there is a center called Nassau Thrive that opened up in Westbury, I want to say about 10 days ago in my district, which is a center that really could be very helpful to people who want the help. Instead of going out in the street, to go in and ask for the help and be given that help to be treated. Really record-breaking funding for high school with children who are having an issue. I met a young girl about a month ago at Thrive in Suffolk County. She talked about a dysfunctional family. Her mother was an abuser. Her father was not around. She started with drugs, and it took her down to a very wrong path. She realized that she needed to pull herself out of this, and she checked herself into this center. I think she said she's been free for a year.
Well, that's great.
She got her GED. She's learned a trade. She's ready to go out. And she's aware where she was and the help that was there she tried to access and turn her life around. We need to make sure that people have that help when they go and ask for it instead of going outright into the street. We did away with all the co-pays, so people who are asking for treatment don't have to be stuck with a lot of different co-pays.
Oh, that's wonderful.
The extension for treating people was changed from 14 days to 28 days. Is 28 days enough? Probably not. But at least it's a longer period to keep people in a safe environment and help them.
I think it takes 28 days to start a new habit.
You know, and we need to do more to help to solve this crisis. Mm-hmm. All of us, private and also our electeds, really could advocate for funding for these facilities. And I will continue to do so.
Well, thank you. That's very important for us. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and yet there's so many empty storefronts when we look down the street. What kind of help are you putting together to support our small businesses? Because they comprise, I think, like 98% of New York State.
Yes.
And it's just...
So I don't know if you are aware, I chair also the Committee on Commerce, Economic Development, and Small Businesses. And I'm trying to really find how we can help. This is not an issue that's really is just specific to one area.
Right.
Mainstream America is having a very big struggle because a lot of us are using internet. We get on the computer, order things online, it comes to your house as opposed to driving somewhere. Mm-hmm. We need to really encourage everyone to shop locally and help their communities. I had done that very much and had been a voice on that front when I was on the council seat. Because when the stores go out of business, it has a big impact on the whole community.
Right.
And we all have to take part to do that. But aside from that, I've passed some legislation to do that, to give that help to the small businesses. We passed legislation where they can put in tax-free money aside in a savings account for a rainy day. When something does happen with the business and they need money, they can go ahead and actually take from that rainy source, the bank account that they put in, that they put in tax-free funding in. We also passed another one to put money away, again, when the time is right, in a savings account. And if down the road they need to hire somebody to tap into that tax-free money to hire and expand their businesses. I am actually looking into, after the session is over, sometime end of summer, to do a road trip throughout the state, from Buffalo all the way to Montauk, and go and bring in different speakers at different communities and talk about how we can help with the small businesses and the funding and the money that's available through New York State and how small businesses can tap into that. Getting a much more clear website where people can go in and have an easy access and find their way around and see what's available to them, whether that's capital, whether that's in terms of resources that they can tap into within the state itself. So anything that we can do to help out. And I really appreciate if any of your viewers have any idea that could help me with that. I welcome to hear from them.
Oh, great. And so they could call you, or
they can send certainly an email, and they can call up my office with their suggestions, and we certainly will look into that.
Now, you moved your office to Great Neck now?
No, my office is in Mineola.
In Mineola,
Yes,
okay.
It has been in Mineola. We're still in a temporary office. We're working toward a full-time working office that's also in Mineola. They're working out the contracts. I decided on Mineola because it's more central to the district. It's a huge district.
It is.
It goes from Great Neck, Manhasset, Port Washington, Roslyn, Carl Place, Westbury, and then it loops to, there's New Hyde Park, there's South Floral Park, there is Floral Park, Elmont, and a little piece of Hicksville actually also.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So Mineola is really more central. There is easy train access. There is buses. So I wanted to be really center of the district so people from all over would feel that they're welcome to come and pay us a visit.
That's great. And your office is open Monday through Friday, from 8 to?
They're open from 8:30, 9 o'clock till like 5 o'clock, but everything needs to be basically on an appointment basis. Right now, most of my time gets spent in Albany. From January till the end of June, we have sessions. So I actually came back from Albany last night late. At 9 o'clock, I got home.
Through that storm.
I drove through the storm, through the rain, yes. So it all depends if a staff member could help them or if they want a meeting. Usually it's Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, but now as we're getting closer to the end, I'm probably going to be spending a lot more time than 3 days. We try to accommodate really anyone who needs that FaceTime with me as much as we possibly can. I do also a lot of meetings in Albany. A lot of constituents have come and visited me in Albany, in my Albany office. And I really take every chance when there is different community events to participate. This past Monday, I was at 3 different Memorial Day ceremonies. On Saturday, I was at 2 different Memorial Day services. So I try to go wherever I get invited, as much as I'm physically here. And if I can't go, I try to send somebody on my staff. And because I truly believe it's important to hear from the people that you represent. There are times people who don't feel comfortable enough picking up the phone and calling and making an appointment, or they feel more comfortable at a different setting. And I love going to the different events and meeting people and talking to them.
You're very good at that.
Thank
I know.
you.
As president, I've been grateful that you've always been able to attend our events. It was a great pleasure having you as my guest on From the Source. That's all for now. Thank you for watching From the Source. Tune in next time for more in-depth interviews with members of your community.